Hi there, welcome to our TV show, World Peace. Would you identify yourself, please? What is your name?
Amanda Johnson.
Amanda, what is it that you're doing here today?
We are raising awareness to the issue of child abuse. The city and the state and the whole nation is saturated in stories of child abuse, and we need people to be aware of the signs so they could step in and hopefully save a life.
I'm so excited that you're doing that. I've been doing that for 40 years. I started protecting little children, especially poor children, in the barrio, in the neighborhoods. I think you know that there's horrible abuse still going on today there,
Yes,
but it's a lot better than it used to be.
It's actually escalating. It's skyrocketing. They call it the silent epidemic because nobody wants to talk about it. But there's 3 million reports of child abuse every year, but they think it's more like 10 million because so many cases go unreported.
That's very important. We need to learn those numbers. And I want to share a couple things with you after the interview. Have there been any fatalities that you know about?
Well, in 2012, there was 19 in Bexar County alone, over 280 in the state of Texas. And I don't know about 2013, but if it's one, that's one too many.
And that was death resulted from child abuse.
Yes, and I want to point out too that child abuse that leads to death has a statute of limitations of 7 years. Murder has a statute of no statute of limitations. What is the difference between child abuse that leads to death and murder?
We'll do it.
Okay, please repeat that. I'm staggered to hear that, but I believe it.
Well, there was a case of Juliet. There's two twins, and the mom and the dad were charged in the abuse, but the statute of limitations ran out against the mom, and just 2 weeks ago, all the charges were dropped against her because the statute of limitations is 7 years for child abuse that leads to death.
Okay. Have you ever thought of, or has anybody thought of doing something about it, trying to pressure the politicians to change that kind of nonsense?
There's a lot of ways we can go about this. Today was all about awareness. You can write your senator, say, give us more money per prevention. Why is the punishment for people, like if it's an adult versus adult situation, their sentences are 45% stricter than on child abuse. Some of them are max 8 years, some get plea bargains, some get probation. It should, children are defenseless. It should be considered capital murder for all child abuse.
Hold on. Let's get back to our conversation.
Okay.
All right. There's stories going on today in the newspapers about which politicians voted yes and which voted no on a very important issue. But what the media does not do and did not do, and I call it to their attention, they don't list the names of the politicians who did that, who are guilty of this horrible thing. Do you find anything like that in what you do? Is there anybody who is covered up that you know about?
Well, it is not mandatory for states to report the number of deaths due to child abuse and neglect. 3 states didn't even report any deaths at all. So we had a petition today to make it mandatory that all states report all child abuse cases so we can get better numbers.
Okay, now what about the people that were obviously guilty? You mentioned a couple of examples. Are they publicized? Do their names come up?
No, they don't. I mean, the more you talk about child abuse cases, somebody might cite you Giovanni Ochoa, who died in 2003, but there was probably 1,000 kids that have died since him in San Antonio. And, you know, just last week, there was a report of 4 kids living in cages, and they got rescued by somebody that's in March Against Child Abuse, reported it. 4 kids got rescued, ages 1 through 5, 2 in each cage, and not a peep was on the news. But I bet you if San Antonians knew how thick with abuse and saturated the city really is, they might get outraged. I mean, we have a new town happening every year here, and people don't like it when you hurt our kids, but for some reason, nobody wants to talk about it. They don't want to put it on the news every night. They don't want to put it on the front page of the paper, and that's why you have to raise awareness.
Okay, well, I want to share with you, whether you agree or not, is I've been doing this for many, many years, and I find that if something happens in Alamo Heights, which is a rich part of the town, it doesn't come out in the news very much. I have raised that issue with the media, with the newspapers, with the television, and they'll discuss it, but they don't change it. So I know of a case right now that you could be covering in Alamo Heights, but they probably wouldn't tell you. So I'm glad you raised that issue, because all of the kids that I found who have been abused, one of them died not too long ago, were poor kids. Let me just tell you about that one, because he came to mind right now. I found him when he was 7 years old. He had never been to a doctor, never been to a hospital. His legs didn't work. He walked on his knees. They put pads on his knees. He walked on his knees and his hands. And when I found him, I got him taken care of. I got him clothes and food and everything. In fact, there was a rich lady. I won't use her name right now, but I'm going to bring her out. She was very, very rich, and she found out, and she bought him clothes, and she didn't have to do anything. They weren't related. So anyway, I guess my major point is that there are still kids. This is a couple of years ago, but there's still kids that live in an insane environment that can't, and you know it. So I'm glad to take advantage. Is there anything else that you want to say?
I just want to say, if something sounds suspicious and stories don't add up, children under the cruising age should not have any bruises. If you notice a kid, poor hygiene, loss of weight, unkept, something's going on. They could be a victim of neglect, and a lot of the cases of neglect leads to physical abuse and definitely emotional abuse, and a lot of them die from injuries resulting from medical neglect as well.
I'll close by thanking you for what you do. You save children's lives, and you take away a lot of their suffering.
Thank you.
You can't ask for much more than that. Please wait for me. Don't leave.
Okay.
Thank you.